Nice, Nicole. Student journey continues. Thank you everyone for leaving me comments to say you enjoy hearing about what I've been learning, what I've been reading. I really appreciate that. And I know it's not everybody's cup of tea, and this is quite different to what I've been posting for the last 2 years. I will try to post some book reviews soon, hopefully, and get the balance back a bit soon, hopefully. But for now, thank you for bearing with me. So for the next seminar, for the narrative transformations module, we're going to read more Chaucer in Middle English. So after Troilus and Crusade, which we read and studied last 2 weeks, we are going into the legend of good women. So the topic of the next seminar is called Writing Women, and the primary text is Chaucer's The Legend of Good Women. I'm reading the Norton edition, Dream, Visions and Other Poems. This one, this is the recommended edition, and includes Chaucer's 4 dream visions, the Book of the Duchess, the House of Fame, the Parliament of Fowls, and the Legend of Good Women, along with selected shorter poems. One of the selected shorter poems is called The Complaint of Chaucer to His Purse. I'm really curious what he complains about his purse. So the Good Women is a collection of shorter poems, shorter than Troilus and Crusade, definitely shorter. And the selection of women are Cleopatra and Antony and Cleopatra. Thisbe, I presume, is the Pyramus, and Thisbe. So I know all of these guys from Shakespeare's plays, really. And Dido, the Dido from the Aeneid. Hypsipyle, and Medea. I heard of Medea. I don't know who is Hypsipyle. And Lucrece from The Rape of Lucrece. Ariadne, I heard of Ariadne. I don't know exactly what happens to her. I just heard of her name. Philomela, also I heard of her from Titus Andronicus. I think the story of Titus Andronicus is kind of borrowed from the story of Philomela. And Phyllis, I have no idea who Phyllis is. And the last woman is Hypermnestra, and I don't know who she is either. So look forward to reading about them. I know very little at this point about the legend of good women, but I just very, very quickly read the Wikipedia page, and it says this was written after Troilus and Crusade, and Chaucer one day, well, according to him, I don't know, I haven't read very much, he had a dream, and the god of love and his queen kind of told him off for writing women in a bad light because Crusade was not faithful. She deserted Troilus and went on loving another man. Anyway, she was kind of not a faithful woman. So the queen of the god of love complained and said, please write something about the virtue of woman and the good things they did. So that's why Chaucer wrote this collection called The Legend of Good Women. So this is the beginning of a reading vlog. Hopefully, I'm just going to make a start today on The Legend of Good Women, and I will report and come back to you as I read what I've learned, and maybe about each woman and what happens to them and what they did, etc, etc. So please feel free to come along, and if you want to read some of this, I'm sure it's interesting too. This is all in Middle English as well. We'll see how I get on. I keep forgetting to mention this. The best edition of all of Chaucer's works, most of Chaucer's works, is the Riverside Chaucer. That is the #1 recommended edition. If you are interested in reading Chaucer's works, buy the Riverside Chaucer and you'll be fine. The reason that I keep reading the Penguin edition for Troilus and Crusade, the Norton edition of Troilus and Crusade, and the Dream Visions is because the Riverside Chaucer is so big. It's a doorstopper. I just can't persuade myself to take it out of the library and carry it all the way home, back and forth to the uni. That's the only reason I'm not using the Riverside Chaucer, but I just want you to know that is the #1 recommended edition. I forgot to say in my last video. I just want to add that in. Hi, I'm in Durham today. It's Wednesday? No, it's Friday. It's Friday the 15th of November. I'm in Durham today. I'm standing in a really random place. I want to show you the nice riverside, but if I put my camera down, you can only see the ugly building. Sorry about that. Just an update about my reading of The Legend of Good Women. I read The Legend of Cleopatra, The Legend of Lucrece, and The Legend of Philomela for now. So I want to just tell you a little bit what each one is about. So Cleopatra is probably the most famous. Antony left Rome and his wife Octavia for this Queen of Egypt, and Octavia's brother Octavius came after Antony and had this really famous sea battle, the Battle of Actium, and defeated Antony. So Antony committed suicide and Cleopatra committed suicide after him. That's basically the story we all know from Shakespeare. That's where I learned about Antony or Cleopatra, and Chaucer's retelling, Chaucer's edition of Cleopatra is pretty similar. The only difference, the main difference that struck me at least, is this detail about the serpents. So in Shakespeare's play, I think there's one serpent, there's one snake, is that right? But in Chaucer's edition, Cleopatra basically dug a massive hole next to the shrine of Antony that she built for Antony after he died. She dug this massive hole, and then it says she poured all of the snakes, all of the serpents she could find into this pit, and she jumped into it naked, and the serpents stung her immediately and she died. That's the main difference that I noticed. The second story is the story, The Legend of Lucrece. So Shakespeare borrowed this story in his Cymbeline. We just read Cymbeline in September just passed. The lesson of Cymbeline and the lesson of Lucrece is basically, husbands do not show off if you have a beautiful wife. So basically, Tarquinius is the villain. He heard about Lucrece from Lucrece's husband, and Lucrece's husband said, my wife is beautiful, she's noble, everybody says so, and then let me show you. So they went to Lucrece's home and they watched her. Tarquinius thought, oh right, she's actually very beautiful and her husband was not exaggerating, I'm going to have her, she likes it or not. So he raped her, and Lucrece basically committed suicide for her husband's reputation. I think that's a very interesting point. She committed suicide not for her own reputation, or at least that's not the emphasis. The emphasis, she says, she cannot have her husband's name kind of injured and damaged. She didn't mention anything about her own name. I wonder if that, in a cultural context, goes without saying, so that's why Chaucer didn't say anything about that. But that's one thing to note, interesting thing. And there's a very interesting detail about forgiveness. I want to read you a little bit. Let me find the book. So this is after the rape. Lucrece told her husband, her friends and family about what happened, and they answered all upon their faith that they forgive her, for it was right, for it was only just that they forgive her. It was no guilt, it lay not in her might, it lay not in her power, and said there in samples many as in they gave her many examples, as in precedents. But all for naught, for thus she said anon, be as be may, quoth she, of forgiving, I will not have no forgive, I will have no forgiveness for nothing. So as in, be that as it may, as to forgiving, I will not have any forgiveness, no matter what. Which I find really interesting. Why does she need forgiveness? She hasn't done anything wrong. It was not her fault. But it seems to assume that she needs to take the responsibility of this rape, and even though her friends and family says she needs no forgiveness, it's not her fault, but she takes it as if it's her fault, and she said, I want no forgiveness, I want to die. So that's a detail I find really interesting. And the last story I read so far is Philomela. Shakespeare borrowed the story of Philomela in his Titus Andronicus. So Tereus is the name of the man, the villain in this story. He married a woman called Progny from Athens. Progny has a sister called Philomela, and they were really close friends. So after Progny got married to Tereus, she said, can I please have my sister here for a while? I really miss her. So she asked her husband to go back to her hometown, to Athens, to collect her sister. When Tereus went and saw Philomela, he thought, she's beautiful, I'm going to have her, she likes it or not. So he took her from her home and took her into a cave, raped her, cut her tongue out, and locked her up in a castle. And Philomela managed to weave her story into a tapestry and send it to her sister. Shakespeare makes use of this story, and Shakespeare, I don't know what's his source material, if it's directly from Ovid, and I'm not quite sure what happened in Ovid, I need to check, but Shakespeare's story is a bit different. He made the guy not only cut off Lavinia's tongue, he also make him cut off her hands, which means she can't write and she can't even weave this tapestry. But anyway, in Chaucer's edition, she managed to weave this tapestry. I'm so sorry about these seagulls. So Philomela in Chaucer's story weaved her whole story into this tapestry and managed to send it to her sister, and her sister came and found her, and they were sorrow together. And that's where the story ends, which I find very interesting, because a lot happened after that. It's almost that the most important thing happened after that, because Progny and Philomela, they revenged onto Tereus by killing their child. So Progny killed their own child in revenge and served the flesh of their son, I think it was a son, in a dish to Tereus. I'm pretty sure that's what happened in Titus Andronicus as well, in Shakespeare's play. So that's a very interesting detail to note as well. So For now, all 3 stories are really short, about 5 pages each. Just find the fact that they are all so short interesting already, because you remember from my previous video about Troilus and Cresside. How long Troilus and Cresside is? It's about 350 pages, 370 pages, and it's about this love story between the 2 lovers, and Cresside is the unfaithful woman who betrayed Troilus. And this whole 350 pages is, I said, there's no political complications like Antonio and Cleopatra, there's no family complications like Romeo and Juliet, or it's just a very simple love story about the unfaithful woman. And now the queen of the god of love asks Chaucer to write stories about the good women, the virtuous women, and all the stories are about 5 pages long. And I've been thinking, what do these women have in common? Why are they good? What's the definition of good? They are not actually good in a positive way. If you think about it, they are more helpless victims who just came across misfortunes by awful man. A lot to be said about that. I'm going to carry on reading about Dido after this. I'm going on holiday tomorrow, so I will carry my good women with me to Scotland, and we'll read the Legend of Dido in the Legend of Good Women, as well as in the House of Fame, which is in this collection as well. I will also try to read the prologue of the Legend of Good Women. I started with that, but it was very long, so I gave up halfway and went straight to the women. So we'll see how it goes. A couple of things to add, just as I am waiting for the train anyway, about the brevity of the stories. Chaucer, the author / the narrator, kept saying, I'll get to the main point and skip the rest because that's not important. And he skipped so much, especially if we use the story of Philomela as an example. What he skipped is basically the revenge, and I wonder if there's a reason that he skipped it more important than for the brevity of the story, as in, I have no time, I'm in a rush, let's just stop here. Maybe he skipped it because he thinks revenge is not good, not virtuous. That's why he skipped the whole episode of revenge. If that's the case, what does it say about the definition of good? What does it say about the sense of justice? What does it say about maybe taking revenge into your own hand, taking justice into your own hand, and the sense of courage? A lot to think about. Hello from a beautiful, bright day in Durham. I'm here for my seminar. We are going to discuss The Legend of Good Women by Chaucer in about 10 minutes, so I can't stand and chat for very long. But just want to say, I feel like I'm not giving Chaucer the amount of attention I'd like to, partly because we have to read a new book every 2 weeks. I feel like compared to how much I give to Shakespeare, I'm not doing Chaucer justice, and I feel a bit sad. I feel like if I ever met Chaucer, I will have to apologize. There are a lot to think about, to discuss, but I don't have the time to read the stories again like I do for Shakespeare. So for each seminar, we are given a few topics, a few key themes to think about before the seminar. So when we get there, each one would give a minute, 2 minutes, little, not even presentation, just kind of share what you think, share what you've learned and found. But I don't think I'm doing very well. I feel like, because I haven't given enough time and attention and thought on each story, on each subject, I haven't been given very coherent, thoughtful discussions. And this is seminar number 4, I think, and there are only 10 of them. I feel like I need to do better. I need to try harder. Hello, I'm back from the seminar. I didn't do too badly this time. I am happy to report, compared to the last seminar, I felt like the last seminar about Troilus and Crusade, I was not getting it. I was completely just talking rubbish. I don't know, maybe I'm being too harsh. Anyway, we discussed the prologue of The Legend of Good Women, and specifically the legend of Cleopatra, the legend of Dido, the legend of Lucrece and Philomela. Separately, not the same legend. Legend of Philomela and the legend of Lucrece. Some of these are my course mates' opinion. We had great discussions, so I will reference them rather than claiming them as my own. One of the course mates was talking about the agency of Dido. I think that's what she said. Basically, Dido is portrayed as a queen, a ruler, a powerful woman in Virgil, but she is portrayed a lot weaker in Chaucer, which when she commented on that, I suddenly thought, yes, that's absolutely right. So the Dido in the Aeneid has a sense of pride in herself. She's absolutely a queen. When Aeneas said, the god says I have to go, I'm going to leave you, Dido basically said, fine, just go. She's not begging him. But in Chaucer, it says she cries, she kneels, she begs him, she offers to be his servant, his lowest slave or something like that. When I read that, and I thought, this is not the Dido I know from Virgil. And when my course mate mentioned that, I thought that's absolutely right. And then about Cleopatra, it's interesting, everybody says Cleopatra among all of these women is the bad woman, because what she did historically to Antony, I guess she's the seducer. She basically enchanted him. So he left his wife, he left his country, he basically got wrapped up in this lust and love, and he basically ended up not doing very much and became a failure and lost his honor and everything. My understanding of Cleopatra comes from Shakespeare. So my understanding of this woman is not bad from the beginning, because I don't think Shakespeare portrays her as a bad woman. My view on Cleopatra in Shakespeare, as well as in Chaucer, is that I think she's actually quite a positive, actual good woman among all of these women, because she actually did something. She made a speech before she killed herself. She said, "I am your wife. Whatever you experience, I will experience. I will keep my covenant with you. I will hold on to our love. I'll be true to you. If you die, I will die." And she jumped into this pit full of serpents. That's an action. She did something. And that courage and faithfulness in love, to me, it's good. Even though maybe historically what she did is not so good. But when you tell her story, and when you compare her story to the rest of the women, I think she's actually good. Because the other women, Dido and Lucrece and Philomela, they respond to what happened to them rather than, they respond in a modest, innocent, blameless way, but they haven't done anything positively good. That's just my view. My lunch just arrived, so I'll have some food first. Again, a lot more I haven't said, a lot more to discuss, but we will end here. Next seminar we are going to discuss Circling and the Green Knight and some other stories which I haven't heard of. I just went to the library and borrowed some books, so I will be reading those. So until next time, that's all for today. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in my next one.